The sponsor of today's interview is College Soccer's Next. College Soccer's Next is the #1 college soccer recruiting service focused on helping aspiring prospective student athletes achieve their dreams of playing college soccer. Some of the services that they're able to provide, I got to read them off the list, include a college soccer mentor who's gone through the recruiting process firsthand, a strength and conditioning coach, a sports nutrition coach, a professional highlight video editor, as well as a personal evaluation and strategic proven plan of action, as well as much, much more to make your dreams of playing college soccer turn into a reality. Book your free consultation call today down in the description at collegesoccersnext.com. Take your first steps at earning your college soccer scholarship today. Enjoy the episode, folks. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Kickleball Podcast. I'm your host for today, Danny Lang, and today we have very special guests from Maryland men's soccer, formerly of Yale men's soccer, and formerly of Fordham men's soccer,
That's right.
Maximilian Rogers. How are you doing today, my man?
Doing well. Thanks, Danny. Looking forward to this. Thanks for having me on.
Likewise. I mean, you've been a guy. We were just talking a little bit before
Yeah.
on, before we started recording. But yeah, I've been watching you since last year's game at Cornell when you were still at Yale, and
Mhm.
you're a dude that I've been watching. I'm like, where the hell did this dude come from? And I've been keeping up with you like here and there, just like watching whatever, because Big Ten has the paywall to look through that stuff.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
look back and just make sure, like, I catch everything. I always make sure
yeah.
to get the lay of the land, but.
No, well done.
It's a pleasure to be able to talk to you now, my man. And I won't waste too much more of your time anywhere. I'll let you go.
Cool.
Uh, yeah. So, but yeah, in any case, I mean, it's a pleasure to be able to talk to you now and just to go through your story. So, with that, tell me about the season as a whole for you and the rest of the Terrapins team.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been a great season so far. Building off last year, I think the program wasn't where we wanted to be last year, but we know, it's Maryland soccer. It's a name and a program that means a lot in the college soccer sort of world, and we knew that we had to go about restoring that sort of pride in the Maryland name is what we've spoken about a lot, and I think we've done a good job of that this year so far. We haven't been perfect, but there's still hopefully a lot of football to be played for us. So looking forward to plenty more successes with the Maryland team.
Yeah, and I think a huge part of that as well has been, the man at the helm, Sasha Sarovsky. And he's just, I mean, he's been at the head of the program, I think, since 1993, multiple
Yeah.
national championships, multiple guys who've gone on to play professionally. I mean, what can you say about being under his leadership this year?
It's been amazing. He's the sort of name that you hear a lot of people talk about before you make that decision to come and play for Maryland. And you know, um, I will have to say he has completely sort of lived up to every expectation that I've had of him. Just from the way he, man manages to his understanding of the game, to his influence and understanding of the college soccer game as well. I think because it's its own style, and that's someone that is tried and tested in the big games, in the biggest conferences for a very long time, and so any wisdom that he has to share with us is almost always extremely insightful.
Yeah, 32 years at a program. I mean, you know your way around college soccer, but especially, I mean, around Maryland. That's got to be an amazing experience, though, too. Again, like you're saying, just to echo exactly what you talked about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, I mean, another thing about Maryland, though, too, what makes them so difficult to play at home. I mean, you have about a few hundred fans that are stacked up behind each of the goals in
Yeah.
most games when you're playing at
Yeah.
home. I mean, tell me about that environment. I know that's not necessarily common in many
No,
environments.
no, we're super blessed. The crew at Maryland, if you ask me, they're the best in the country. Every single game, rain, hail, or shine, we have a couple of hundred diehard fans that are there and are loud and are really helping the guys bring that sort of energy no matter who we're playing, which is just an unbelievable blessing, and it just adds to what is already an amazing environment at Ludwig Field. So it's been awesome to experience firsthand this year so far.
Man, that's phenomenal. I mean, we're trying to figure out our own way. Like, me and Julio are just trying to get, I mean, we're entertaining, figuring out like what environments we want to make it out to in due time.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe not quite this season, which would have been nice, but we'll make sure to make our rounds as much as we can.
Ludwig should definitely be on that checklist, I would say.
There
Yeah.
we go then. I mean, and I'm on the East Coast, so
Oh,
it wouldn't be, two out of the,
there you
anyway.
go.
Maybe I'm
Okay.
getting too far ahead of myself, but we'll see that throw. But yeah, so I want to get into a few of the matches though this season though too. I mean, the away game, it was a 3-2 victory against Washington, and your goal was a left-footed shot on a difficult angle, but it ended up being one of those goals that ended up making a difference in that match. What else do you know from that game that you'd be able to speak on?
Washington are a great team. I think they did a really good job of posing questions and challenges for us. They scored the first goal and then we came back and then they scored again. So, they were a team that really had us pinned and made us dig deep. But I think that Washington game in particular really showed the character and the fight that is Maryland soccer and is a big part of our identity. And we were just fortunate that when we needed to, we were able to find those key opportunities and those key goals. And I was more than happy to help with that goal to level it, and then to help with that game winning assist to Cole with a quality headed finish to win it.
Yeah, no, I mean that's it's whenever you're able to end up literally traveling across the country and being able to take 3 points, I mean that's a phenomenal look for you and this team, and I think it really plays into, the kind of team that we didn't necessarily see all of last year. I don't think there really were so many weaknesses really, and it really
Yeah,
was just, unfortunately not being able to get a few wins here, but that's just
yeah.
not been the story for this year. It's been, I think a double-digit win total this year, I believe, right?
Nearly. I think we're right about. I can't tell you the exact number, but we're right next to it, I
Yeah,
think.
you know what? That should have been my job. I should have wrote that down somewhere.
No worries, Daddy.
And the 3-0 win against Wisconsin though too. I mean that's another huge match. I mean a Big Ten team, that another a Big Ten opponent, for you guys within the conference, but they were I think in the top 10 in the country at that point. 3 assists for you in that contest, including one hitting the post, getting the corner kick, and being able to put a good ball into the middle of the box. I mean that's exactly how you respond after that. But if you wouldn't mind, tell me your thoughts on that match as well.
Yeah, look, I think if you ask nearly anyone on this Maryland team, we think so far Wisconsin was our best, most complete 90-minute performance. And, I think there was for a combination of reasons. I think first and foremost, we defended extremely, extremely well, which when you're someone that's trying to score goals, it just gives you that little bit more confidence knowing that, you have such a solid backline that you only need to get one or two goals and you can pretty much guarantee those 3 points. And we were fired up for that Wisconsin game. First game of the Big Ten at Ludwig, which we've already spoken about. Number 8 team in the country coming to our turf. So we were fired up and ready to go. And I think getting that goal early and then coming out in the second half and getting 2 quick ones, it was just a perfect execution of a game plan, I would say.
And talk about how volatile, I mean, this Big Ten really ends up being. I mean, I think most teams really have spent some sort of time with that national recognition, and deservedly so. I mean, this, I
Yeah.
think, probably one of the most complete, if not the most complete conference from top to bottom in all of college soccer this season.
Yeah, it's an absolute dogfight of a league, and we're both familiar with the Ivy League. I'd say it's a similar situation to the Ivy League, but there's something even more heightened about the Big Ten. You really truly feel that anyone can beat anyone on their day, and the only thing that separates first place from fifth from bottom is really one or two goals here and there that completely, can change results and then, help generate a bit more momentum and situations like that. But I mean, we've definitely seen it in our recent games. You can't take anyone for granted in the Big Ten. But on the other end, you're not out of any game in the Big Ten. It's always going to be a battle. And if you're willing to do the hard yards, I think you can be successful.
Yes, 100%. And we've seen that from this team as well. 100% can be successful. And I think will be successful. This isn't a team that I think anyone is counting out,
No, I
going into
sure hope not. I
the.
sure hope not.
And yeah, I want to go back to the Wisconsin game though too, because I think this speaks to your what goes on in your own brain as well. I mean, you know, I've seen a lot of guys that end up getting so frustrated if you end up seeing a ball and it ends up getting hit off the post. And, right away you go to grab that ball, hit to the corner, and you're able to perfectly place a ball to where you're able to a goal is able to put up onto the score sheet. So, I mean, tell me about that mindset change. I mean, is it really just goldfish memory at that point, to make sure that it's muscle memory just to do what you need to do in that case? But what is about that?
It's a good question. I think in those situations, we just kind of, I mean, personally, I feel like we're right on the edge of I feel like the momentum's in our favor, and we just need to use it and capitalize on it. So for me, it's almost a matter of, trying to get the ball back in play as quickly as possible, because I feel like, we're on top of them and this is our moment to take advantage. And obviously I would love for that ball to hit the inside of the post and go into the back of the net. But I think in those situations, it's just about, for me, especially with that one, I really felt like we were on top of them, and that was our chance to sort of make it show on the scoreboard, and luckily we were able to do so.
Yeah, well said, Max. I mean, I love that perspective. I like being able to get into, your own mind and being able to see what that looks like. And I think that was a great
Yeah,
answer. So I really appreciate that.
cool. Of course. Yeah.
So, I'm done talking about, what's been looked like, over this last year roughly, because there's so much more to, your own individual journey. And I want to give you
Mm.
the space really to tell us about that. So, as far back as you
Yeah.
can remember, your earliest memories playing soccer and cricket, I know too. We'll get into a little bit of that as well. We
Yeah.
want
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I want to hear all of your memories from your youth, let's say up until coming to the US to play college ball.
Yeah, so I had an interesting youth as far as football. So I was born in London. So obviously, I didn't really have a choice. Football was just kind of always going to be there. Born really close to Stamford Bridge in Chelsea. So, a Chelsea fan, a football fan. And from then on, uh, it's just been something that's always been a part of, my identity. Even when we moved back over to Australia, my dad's side of the family, I would say, is quite a strong cricketing family. So obviously, that I was exposed to that sort of sport as amongst others, a bit of athletics and basketball and rugby and stuff like that. But it was always football for me. Even though my dad might not love me saying that, I really did enjoy cricket. But I always say when people ask me, I liked cricket, but I loved football. And I think, I was able to have a lot of very unique experiences in my development. I spent a lot of time back over in England with some academies such as Watford and Norwich for, 6 month stints, which sort of helped me grow up a bit, I think, as a 14, 15-year-old kid. And then I was back in Australia playing for Sydney FC and then the Central Coast Mariners. So I think a combination of those experiences, playing that men's football from an early age and also having to go and live by yourself on the other side of the world prepped me quite well for what is, a pretty tough entry point in college athletics. As an international, you come over here in the fall, you get 3 weeks of preseason, and then you are just off to
Right.
the races for the next 3 months, heads down. So I like to think that those different experiences definitely prepped me well for what is a very hectic college soccer schedule.
Yeah, very interesting. And so,
Yeah.
when did the idea of college football, or excuse me, college soccer end up becoming the forefront of your mind? 'Cause I know this wasn't something that you thought of all too much really until when some people would look at it as too late.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I really didn't fully grasp what the college athletic scene looked like. I was quite naive, but I only really knew three or four college names, like the only ones you'd expect, Australians to know. And because of that, I didn't really understand that there was this whole league and ecosystem of high-end athletics and studies as well. And so it actually took a few different people reaching out and suggesting multiple times for me to finally, turn around and have a go at it. And I'm lucky I did. I'm lucky I did. So yeah, it turned out well.
And I know the first stop in that journey was Fordham University. And so
Yeah,
I went to the prep school, I went to the prep high school, and I was around
yeah,
there. And I know the environment is very friendly to people who have an international background or who aren't from the United
yeah,
States. Like that's only just from what I've heard. I mean, I want to get
yeah.
your perspective if that's something that you want to talk about.
Oh, absolutely.
What was that like for you?
Fordham was amazing. Fordham was a really, really great experience from all aspects. Firstly, I think a big reason why it draws a lot of internationals is it's got a great business program and it's in New York City. So that was one where, again, going back to that sort of naivety, I didn't really understand what the A10 or the Big Ten or the ACC or the Pac-12 really meant. So I saw a good business school in New York City that has a history of winning and went for it. And on the football side of things, it was always quite an international roster and quite an old roster. I think the coaches at Fordham do a good job of bringing in a very solid mix, I would say. But it made for a really, really cool, locker room environment, quite an international one. So no, I loved my time at Fordham.
I think even back then, though, too, I mean, you were a guy who I think was always known really for your technical ability. And I think that's partly been because of the experiences that you talked about before, though. I mean, being able to play in academies, playing with professional men's football back in Australia. But, when did you realize that this really could be something that could separate you from most midfielders in college soccer? I mean, I think you're one of the most technically talented midfielders in the entire college landscape.
I appreciate that, Danny. That's nice to hear. But honestly, I don't know if I've ever thought about things that way. For me, uh, I like to really truly focus on doing whatever we can to win the game. And the way I've found things so far in college soccer is that, if I can channel all my energy into helping the team win, normally, not always, but normally that will reflect well on me as an individual too. And so I've never thought about my own technical ability in that sense. I've always thought about, what do I offer as a player? Because there's a lot of things I don't offer, what do I offer at an a higher level that can help us as a team be successful, whether that's, set pieces or chance creation or shots from the edge of the box and stuff like that, and from trying to focus on what I think I do really well and put that into a formula that helps us get more results. I think everyone wins in that sort of situation.
Yeah, and I think
That
it's
makes sense. Yeah.
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's something that um, I think to a certain degree most players really try to embody that as much as they can, but I think that's really the first way that I've really heard it word in that sense, but I
Yeah.
still think it's absolutely a valid way to be able to look at that, even though I
Yeah.
don't really have much of that experience of that locker room experience, it's really
Mhm.
you are making sure that you're doing as much as you can to get those 3 points in every match in whatever your
Yeah.
capacity being in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what you have to do when you're playing for teams, like all three teams that I've played for that have been successful. Every successful team, there has to be a give and a take, and you have to understand, the bigger picture and just trust that if as a unit you're able to achieve your wider and bigger goals, that as a result of that, any individual goals you might have will be achieved along the way too.
You want to talk about team goals though too. I mean, winning the A10 must have been pretty nice with Fordham as well.
Yeah, no, I've been lucky. I've been lucky. I've been I've been a part of a few winning teams. The A10 was a special team, that A10 winning team at Fordham. Same with that Ivy League winning team at Yale, which was great fun. And I'm hoping that, sorry about that. Sorry about that.
No, it's
Cornell guys, I know. You guys are always close, but not close enough
okay.
when it matters. But yeah, I really do believe that there's qualities in those teams that I see and feel in this Maryland team. So, which gives me a lot of confidence going into this sort of last month or 2 months of play.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been. I mean, I want to get back to the point though that you mentioned before with just doing what you needed to be able to do with your
Yeah,
skill set to allow just to just string together wins as much as you guys could. I mean,
yeah,
this is, I think every year you've been in college soccer, it's always been 6 or 7 assists with your handful of goals in there as well, that 3 or 4 pretty much every year too. I mean, that it goes back to the idea of, even though not everything that you offer can possibly show up on a stat sheet, because that's not the reality of the positions that you end up playing in that midfield. But
yeah.
to be able to do what you have to do, what you're able to do really in this central midfield kind of central attacking role as well, though, too. I mean, to be able to see the results and also look at, again, your technical ability, the way you're able to play on ball, your finishing ability, though, as well. I mean, it really shows how you're such a versatile player in any scheme that ends up working out.
Appreciate that, Danny. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice words.
So tell me about the transfer to Yale though too. I mean, I know, as a regular student, I know a lot of people who love, the prospect of being able to go to Yale for a few years, but
Yeah,
drew you in there too. I know that there were conversations initially with recruiting you to Yale.
yeah.
But tell me about the transfer.
I think. Well, first of all, it's very hard to go to my parents and say, "Hey, Yale University is interested. Um, I don't want to go there." I can't imagine many conversations where I would come out of that with the result that I intended. But I was
Right.
very lucky that my parents, gave me a lot of autonomy. They did lend some advice when needed. But I think with Yale, I was actually very impressed with all of the quality of the staff and the players when I visited them, and I knew that it was a program similar to Fordham that had a you know recent history of being very successful. I think the year before I got there, they'd won the regular season, and they had a lot of guys coming back, and I could, I watched them play a couple of times, and I was able to envision myself, slotting into their system and giving them something that they didn't necessarily have that I think would add that extra element to them. And after meeting the guys and getting along super well with all of the guys I met and the coaching staff, I think it just became a decision based on fit. I really felt like I could see myself going to school there, which is always important, and then I really felt like I could see myself being successful on the football field with them too.
And I think a huge part of what you were able to add to that team though too is the midfield presence. And I think that was that, despite the successes that the Yale team did have, always being able to have an extra mid, always being able to have a successful midfielder in such a crowded area where I mean, me and you both know that
Yeah.
winning the midfield battle, especially in the Ivy League, is such a huge thing to be able to control the tempo of that match. And that's definitely what you brought, I think, to that team just by watching over the last 2 years.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. That Yale team always has historically had, I mean, I had played with some amazing strikers and some amazing defenders, and I just felt that honestly what they were missing was someone to just help us, connect the two. And luckily we were able to have two pretty good years together. So it was good. It was great.
Yeah, to the tune of an Ivy League championship though too. I mean, I could have my bias to Cornell all I want, but I think for you to be able to go ahead and get that done, that's always a huge accomplishment regardless.
Yeah. First ever Ivy League tournament as well. So
Yeah.
good one. It's a good one.
Yeah, I think that, to talk about that though too, I think that was an awesome thing to be able to happen to the Ivy League in general. I mean, you never want to be able to go into a match thinking, okay, well, losing one or two games in conference can just derail the entire season.
Yeah.
But being able to get that top four seed, win out when you need to, and that I think is how you really end up finding a champion.
I agree, and I mean, I think it makes for more of a spectacle too. I'm really looking forward to watching that Ivy League championship this year. I'm still hopeful that my Yale mates can squeeze in there, but nonetheless, I've got some good friends, spread out through the Ivy League still, and I think having that sort of playoff setup, also aligns more with what everyone else is doing and makes for much more of a spectacle for everyone watching too.
Yeah, very cool. And I know, I mean, I want to bring up one of the moments though too, because I know this was a highlight in the Yale season, or at least last year for Yale. I mean, the away match against a tough Cornell side, a 2-0 victory. Where I knew we were talking about. I was at the game, and that was a rowdy crowd, more than I
Yeah,
really, I'm used to hearing though too. I mean,
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about that match.
It was a great match. We were fired up. We knew Cornell's always good, man. Cornell is always a challenge. You always need to be at your best when you're playing Cornell because if you're not, they will punish you. And we came in fired up in good form. It was Cornell's senior day too, which, I always love something like that. It just gives you a little bit more of an edge, a little bit more, of a reason to ruin their day. And we got off to a great start. We were able to capitalize on some of that momentum and I think just sort of take control of the match. But yeah, there were some chippy fans. I know that we spoke earlier and you said you weren't one of them, which is we can't confirm or deny,
That's fair.
but it was a great atmosphere. I really enjoyed that game, obviously because of the result, but also the atmosphere was awesome.
Yeah, and getting to play spoiler is pretty nice too.
Oh, it's great. It's almost more fun. I love playing spoiler. There's something about it, I think. I don't know what exactly, but there's something about it for sure.
And you know what? It hasn't really happened so much other than that kind of context. But I feel like on most of these teams that you've been a part of, let alone the maybe the national opinion of people who don't know these teams, but I don't think you've ever really felt like an underdog in your playing career.
No, yeah. I mean, you're right. I've been lucky to be on some successful teams. I think, maybe that Bryant game, we were probably seen as underdogs. Um, but no, apart from that, especially this Yale team that I was a part of, we really did not have that underdog, I guess, association. But a lot of these teams, both the Yale and the Fordham teams, loved to, and even this Maryland team, loves to embrace sort of that underdog, mentality where you feel like you're on the hunt, not the one being hunted, if that makes sense. So whilst maybe on paper we might not have been seen as clear underdogs, I think, especially at Yale, that's definitely a mantra that they push to sort of get them in the right headspace, I would say.
Yeah, and so I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you get asked this question anytime you come on one of these
Yeah.
outlets. I think you know where this ends up going though too. But being a student athlete at Yale, I
Hmm.
mean, being able to balance, um, and I think it's difficult for any student athlete though too. But I think it's certainly heightened at a school like Yale. And I've talked to a lot of the Cornell guys; they feel mostly the same way about this kind of thing. But you know. For an environment where there is a lot of expected of you academically, um, how do you manage that aspect of being a student and then also committing yourself to being the best midfielder, soccer player, person, teammate, coach sometimes, if you're lending a helping hand for some of your teammates too, but how do you balance all that in a given day?
Um, One thing I think you just get used to it. It just becomes a part of your lifestyle. You just, whether you like it or not, it just becomes your new reality. I was very lucky when I first came to Yale that I had some great older guys and guys my age that show me the ropes and, show me what it took and how I'd have to be a bit more efficient with my time and manage my day and make sure that, I was uh, allocating enough energy to every pursuit, if that made sense. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of it you just get used to it, and then it's just leaning on the guys next to you. I was lucky to be in a lot of classes with teammates or a lot of friends that I made outside of the team, and it was just a sense of getting it done as a unit and as a community, and especially within the team. The coaching staff was always very understanding of our academic load, and they were great in how they would schedule practice or stuff like that around it, and ensure that we were on track with every different aspect of our academics, and also making sure we had time to rest and focus on our football too.
All to the tune of Ivy League recognition each year that you were over at Yale, an honorable mention the first year and a first team selection as well, even national recognition at that as well. So,
Hmm.
that kind of environment certainly was highlighted, for
Yeah.
you nationally. But and you mentioned this a little bit briefly though too, but I wouldn't be able to not ask about the Bryant match. I mean,
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
win in the national tournament for Yale since 1999.
Yeah.
And it comes off of a goal that I know you remember, and I'll let you describe from here, but tell me about
Yeah.
the goal and tell me about going to the national tournament for the first time for this team.
Yeah. We knew going to Bryant was going to be a tough match, and a match that would take a lot of work. And they were a fantastic team that was unbelievable at keeping the football. I just felt like I was pressing for about 90% of that game. And their fans again were amazing. I think they had, close to 5,000 fans at the game, and they were loud. They were loud, and it was it was a really tough game to play. But credit to the Yale guys, we had a game plan. We knew that we weren't going to have that much ball going into the game, so there was a sense that we knew that we just have to be extremely efficient when we had it, and take our chances. And I think because of the way that Bryant played, I was always conscious of where their goalkeeper was, because he was trying to sort of be a sweeper or an extra center back in the build a lot. And so I think a combination of recognizing that, and then also just being tired and desperate, with a minute to go in the game. I was lucky that, I still remember Jake winning that ball down the sideline, feeding it into Quana, and then me and Quana making eye contact, and me kind of showing him where he wanted it. He played it to me perfectly where I wanted it, and the rest is history. So yeah, it was an unbelievable moment to be a part of, and I mean the outpour that we got from Yale students and fans and alumni was truly special.
Yeah, I mean, firing away from midfield, goalkeeper off his line, having to take a few steps back, not quite. I mean, the scenes in New Haven, I
Yeah,
wish I would have, been able to see that for myself. But I mean, holy cow! Like for the people who have been watching this Yale team, not quite, being able to crack into the tournament year after you're not quite getting that win, and then being able to give them their first year in 24, excuse me, the first win in 24 years is
yeah,
that's got to be phenomenal. That is phenomenal.
it was really cool. It was great. Yeah, definitely a
And
highlight. Definitely a highlight.
yeah. Um, so now, you know, you're at Maryland now,
Yeah,
and talked about the history, the head coaching, the teammates that you're surrounded by, how your skill set really again fits into this new program now at one of the highest conferences in Division One. But what has allowed you to maintain your confidence in going into East Match? I mean, when you're looking at different environments, pretty frequently, it could be discouraging for some guys not knowing, where they fit in this kind of case. But, having that not been so much of an issue from your perspective, what does this look like in making sure that you're staying consistent and you're staying impactful on this Maryland team, at least throughout the year, which you've certainly done though?
it's a good question. Honestly, Danny, I think a part of it is you have to know a little bit who you are as a footballer, and know what you bring to the game, and and have sort of ideas, or ways of being effective that you can always lean on. So for me, I know, even if I'm not having my best game, I can always focus on my set piece service and ensure that's perfect and stuff like that, or make sure I'm just connecting the simple passes and helping us retain the ball. And then as far as fitting in and being successful, I think I've been very lucky to be a part of three programs that all had, very, very good and experienced coaching staff, and also, very talented and hardworking other players. It just makes it that much easier to fit in when we all have the same, same way of looking at the game and the same desired goals in terms of winning and being successful. That, winning teams find a way, right? And I think all three of these teams, it's been a case of me being conscious of, who I am and what sort of positions and roles I can be successful in, but then also, those around me um, helping me sort of settle in and learn how we can play with each other and make sure that we're successful for the team.
And what are I know a huge part of this has been the environment though too, but and you fed off of all of your teammates again throughout these different environments, but I know especially with Maryland though too. I mean, I think
Yeah,
you're yeah, I don't know how to explain this. It's like it's more of the same that we know to expect from you, but it just seems elevated in some certain way.
yeah.
I mean, what can you tell me about some of the things that you've learned from teammates, from coaches, just in these short few months, through preseason, through trainings, and through really just in-game action?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think it's the players that you're playing with. There's just some, extreme levels of talent and experience sprinkled right through this Maryland roster. Lots of guys have come from very, very serious academies over in Europe, and everyone has seems to have a very impressive, footballing IQ, I would say. And we've just, found a way to really gel and blend quickly, which a lot of credit has to be given to the coaching staff and the work they've done, to recruit different pieces and to put us in a formation, in a setup that allows us all to show our best qualities. And then a lot of it as well comes from just good old fashioned hard work and, doing those extra little bits in the training park, whether that be me staying behind with some of our set piece targets to make sure that we have our timing, or, learning, what Colin or Saddam's preferred way of receiving the ball is, or where I should be when Saddam's 1v1. For example, he's someone that's just so dangerous 1v1. I don't need to bother going out there and helping him. I can just leave that to him and make sure that I'm an option for him, in the box, or even with our midfielders like Leon and Chris and Albie and plenty of others. It's knowing what they bring, knowing that they're all different, but we've found a way to be placed in a position where we bring the best out of each other, I would say. And I've obviously been lucky to be on the receiving end of that in a few different ways.
And what I think adds on to everything that you talked about, though, too, you mentioned this idea of football IQ. And
Mm,
I say an idea like it's a foreign thing, but this is something that's just been ingrained in you, every Division One soccer, two, three, at every level. But
mm.
when you're working on these set pieces consistently in and out with Colin and the rest of these midfielders that you've
Yeah,
talked about, even forwards though too, because I know
yeah,
there's some chances where you've been able to um push the ball up the field and be able to take up space, take on, a few guys at once, where that doesn't become so nervy for you so much, maybe as we saw at Fordham, where that's
yeah,
something that you're more used to the physical style of play. But I
yeah.
want to get your thoughts just on football IQ and how much that plays into the effectiveness of the set pieces that you're able to roll out, without giving too much away, like of
Yeah,
any
yeah, yeah,
schemes or anything like that's,
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? I'm curious to hear your input on that.
I think football IQ for me is, we're not all going to see the game the same way, but we're almost beneficial from a whole bunch of us seeing it slightly differently and bringing different ideas to the frame. So with the set pieces, we've actually been running a whole bunch of different schemes depending on what we see in opposition film. So a lot of credit again has to go to the coaches with that, but then also a lot of credit has to go to some of our set piece targets and those big center backs of ours who do an excellent job of just at the end of the day, you can run all the schemes you want, but you still have to beat your man to the ball, which we have a lot of guys that have a willingness to do. So I think the footballing IQ part of it is multiple fronts. Firstly, it's the staff, doing that work and being able to identify weaknesses in their defense and ways that they think we can exploit it. I think it's in the service, knowing what type of ball, whether it's a flat one, a bit more flighted, in swinger, out swinger, how I can put it in that pocket that they want it, if that makes sense. And then with those targets, it's the willingness, but it's also the footballing IQ to time it and to understand how the ball's coming to them and how they can redirect it and be successful.
And then that makes all the more important, just the first
Yeah.
touch, being able to work one-on-one, I mean, sometimes it's two-on-one even too. Your on-ball
Yeah.
ability becomes so crucial in these kinds of schemes that you guys have been able to run, at
Yeah.
least as of late.
Absolutely. Spot on. Yeah. I think, and because everyone's been playing football all their lives now, football IQ is also something that I think is almost instinctual in certain aspects, right? And you can see that in a lot of the instinctual players that we have on the field for us.
So how do you make sure, is there really so much, and this is me not asking anything about, prior assumptions of programs or anything like that. But I
Yeah.
know there are some players who stress so much about being exceptionally versatile to where it can overshadow certain schemes that are in place. And it doesn't seem like that there's ever been so much expected other than playing your role and doing that to the best of your guys' ability, while also, if you need to take up space, if you need to move the ball further up, then then you're able to do that. But it
Mm.
really, I feel like for Maryland, it ends up being play your role, and that's how you guys have been able to create chances, create scoring opportunities, get these wins, and build upon those and carry that kind of momentum as you've been throughout the rest of the Big Ten.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we're a team that, on paper is extremely talented. And when we train, when we play, we see it. And we see it in player 1 through 28. So we know that there has to be an element of trust. You have to trust that when you hand the ball off to someone else, that they're gonna then do something good with it, and they're gonna give it to someone else who's gonna do something good with it, and then we're gonna go and score a goal. And that's I think a lot of our success has been built off really just trusting the other 10 guys on the pitch and then everyone else that's going to come on and make an impact off the bench, and also obviously trusting the game plan that the coaches present us.
And so you've also seen a lot of this change though as well with the substitution move now as well. I
Yeah.
mean, you can come out of a match, but you're also able to go back in the second half and just being able to do that. I mean, how much of a strategy change really is that for you guys? Because I know normally a lot of you guys have been able to go, at least historically for Maryland, what's taught there is play 90 minutes,
Yeah. Yeah.
being consistent in that regard. I mean, is that so much of a strategy change for you guys? Does that add an extra element? Has that been so much? Because I know, again, you're another guy who's been an Iron Horse, at
Yeah.
least for Maryland. But what does that
Yeah.
look?
No, we have a lot of guys that can bring something different and bring energy off the bench. And I think these rules allow us to almost gamble with those guys, whether it be for 10 minutes on either side of the half or a little spell here or there. Obviously, it gives people a rest where they need it, but it allows us to take a chance on maybe some of our younger guys that just have unbelievable technical ability and see if they can go and completely flip a game on its head in a 10-15 minute span. And I know we have the players to do that, and they've been able to give us something different off the bench so far this year. So I think that's how we've sort of approached that substitution rule, and I don't see that changing. Yeah, it's been good.
It's better than having a starting 11 because it really looks like a starting 15 or starting
Mm.
16 because of the guys that you're able to put in a given notice when you need to be.
Absolutely, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's phenomenal. So, yeah, I mean, for firstly, I'd like to thank you. I really appreciate just the last 10 minutes of being able to go in with these kinds of
Yeah,
schemes. It's
yeah,
been a pleasure to talk to you with that,
awesome.
but I want to wrap up just with a few thoughts on how special that this group really has been this year for you.
Hmm.
Again, an environment, but you've had the reps with this team throughout the last few months, and how special, on the opposite end of where you started from now, towards the end of the season, in comes tournament time, for for the potential NCAA tournament bid that you guys more than likely I see end up making, probably hosting a game at Ludwig as well if I had to bet. But I mean, what on the other side of this season now, tell me about the experience in College Park.
It's been amazing. This is one of the premier programs in college soccer, and I've felt that from the moment I walked in the doors, to be honest, in all aspects. And it's been an amazing experience. And the players are fantastic, the coaches are fantastic, all of the staff. It's been great. And what I love most is, there is just this sense that, the season is just so far from done. We've had some results that we haven't been happy with in recent past, our past two Big Ten games. But if anything, that's just fired us up more. Our goals remain the same. We want to win the Big Ten. We think we are a team that is capable of going all the way and winning the national tournament. So for us, nothing changes, and it's just about trusting our processes, trusting each other, and taking it one game at a time. And on the individual level, this is the reason you come to a program like Maryland, right? Is to play in those high pressure games, and to see how good you are, when the lights are shining their brightest, and there's more and more people watching. So I'm just looking forward to the opportunity of, testing myself in those sort of environments with players that, I fully believe in, and I sure hope they believe in me too.
Max, I think that was exceptionally well said, and I think that's a great note to end up leaving this conversation off that. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm all out of my questions, but I always like to give a minute at the end of the interview in case there's anything else that I miss, anything else that you want to continue to talk about. But once again, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Danny, it's been great. This has been awesome. So thanks for having me on. And if you ever need to come down to College Park, I'm sure Ludwig Field and the crew would show you guys a good time.
Oh man, you got now I'm thinking next year's time I'm planning my trip. I'm gonna find my ticket, but uh, but I really do appreciate it. And I wish you nothing but the best in the future. You have a supporter in me and the rest of kickball all the way through, my man.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Danny. It's been great, man.